to Building the World We Want with Beth Green, your host. And
Hello, this is James Maynard, otherwise known as Sweet Baby James, and I'm her sidekick.
my favorite person.
Ah,
So, what I want to talk about tonight is why I hate the news. Too many opinions, not enough truth. So, I'd like to just describe a little bit about what we're going to deal with tonight. Uh, uh, excuse me. So, our show description says we want to keep informed about really important things that are going on in our nation. And boy, are there a lot of important things going on. But if you're anything like me, you also can't stand social media and the news. The constant anger, exaggerations, opinions, and downright silliness make me incredibly angry, as I feel like my inner space is being dominated by noise, lies, vitriol, and wishful thinking. What are you most angry about? How do you think this is impacting our world? Why is it happening? And what can we do about it? So that is the show description, and let's get into it. Want to remind you to put your comments in if you're on my public Facebook page, facebook.com/Granny Rocks On. I will see your comments or questions. And if you're on my YouTube channel at Beth Green TV, I'll see your questions. If you're on my personal page, I won't see your comments or questions until after the show. So, I really started thinking about this more in depth, of course, before the show. And I'm trying to understand why it feels so incredibly bad. And I sort of suspect that you know what I mean. You go onto your favorite social media and you're just bombarded with headlines that are very sensational, confrontational, something that are supposed to make you click and listen. And how often have you done that? And you discover that the headline underneath has nothing to do with the show or very little. It's like out of 20 minutes, maybe two have anything to do with the topic that you're being introduced to, and they don't even come on until the end or the middle or somewhere else. And it that rankles me. I feel like I'm being played, that I'm being manipulated to watch this program. And I bet you've had that experience too. And a lot of times you'll see things that are very sensational, and I have been conned, or that's how I feel, into actually listening. This time, Trump is done for, or uh, you know, the progressive movement forward is now discredited, or whatever it is. Very sensational kinds of headlines that, when you actually watch what they're saying, often it's not even true. If Trump were as done for every time as I've seen a headline that says that he's done, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in. So it's very annoying, and I feel totally manipulated. Now, how do I get manipulated? Well, I'm looking for something that's going to give me reassurance that the nightmare that we're living through is going to be over one of these days soon, very soon. Please, God, pretty please, let's get rid of this administration. Not that that necessarily means that things are going to get better, but one can only hope, right? So it plays on this news, it plays on the polarization that we're all experiencing, or at least most of us are experiencing in our society today. And I am just as guilty as of being polarized as anybody else. I don't want to hear what so and so and so and so says. I only want to hear what so and so and so and so says. But now I'm getting to the point that I don't even want to hear what the people I agree with say, because so much of it is silly or not true or exaggerated or sensationalized. I wonder if any of you have had that feeling or that experience, that you're just kind of done with it. And now I say, okay, well, I'm going to go into this straight news service instead of into social media. And then I'm going to get some facts, because sometimes I have to go through, I look at all of these posts and I realize that there isn't a fact among them. So I go into what I think is going to be the straight media, and it's just as bad. It's full of opinions and this one slamming that one. You'll have a couple of objective news items. I don't even say that they're really objective, but at least the title isn't as provocative. And you go in, and so there's a few of those. But more and more, I'm seeing social media influencers in my feed of what is supposed to be news. And what is news today? What are we getting that is actually the news? So now I wanted to go back and look at some of the very respected newscasters of the past to see how things have changed. And I'm going to get a lot more into all of this in a minute, especially the social media part, when we get to how this came to happen. But I looked at Edward R. Murrow, who was a very brave journalist who gave us information from the front in World War II, or Dan Rather, who went to Vietnam. And I asked a question that I had never asked before, which was, did Edward R. Murrow come out against McCarthy, Senator Joe McCarthy, who was a rabble-rousing anti-communist nut, and who kept saying there is communists everywhere, in the army, in the State Department, everywhere, everywhere you look, there's a communist. Does that sound familiar? Anyway, Edward R. Murrow, he did come out against McCarthy in 1954. But there were a lot of things that other journalists had come out against him, or had shown what he was 4 years before Edward R. Murrow ever did. And one of my heroes just fell off the pedestal. Like, what took you so long? Now, I was only 9 years old, so I don't blame myself for not having known 5 years. But as the minute I saw McCarthy, I knew he was bad news. That was in 1954. So there's that. And I asked, well, did Dan Rather ever come out against the Vietnam War? And no. But what Dan Rather did is he went to Vietnam and he showed the conditions, and he demonstrated that what the government was doing was lying about the conditions there, lying about the soldiers, what they were going through. And so that wasn't very good. And then he was involved in some scandals also. And I'm beginning to feel like, well, hasn't there ever been anybody, and the media, in terms of the civil rights movement, if you have any interest in what I'm talking about, the Black media was very much on top of the story of what was going on in the South, in particular the civil rights movement. But the white South media, of course, was defending Jim Crow and the status quo. And the mainstream media was pretty nothing, not really playing it up, not talking about it, until things started showing up on television. And it was when people started to see the fire hoses being used against unarmed demonstrators, there was an uproar. And that helped to pass the Civil Rights Act which of course our current government is gutting. So anyway, the media has been really important in showing things and demonstrating things, but it hasn't always been as courageous as I would like to think. So maybe the golden age wasn't as golden. Plus, I do remember there was a period they called it yellow journalism. Remember, James?
Oh, yeah.
Where these newspapers came out with all of these smutty headlines to try to get you to buy their newspaper. And so here we go. It's always been the case that money and power have been associated with the news, and that is going to distort things, right? People have their contacts in the government that they want to keep up. They want to get advertisers. How do you get advertisers? Well, you get advertisers by having people read your newspaper or watch your news. And then, of course, now there's these conglomerates that are buying up news stations that are even theoretically objective, like CNN, trying to turn them into Fox News and so on. And so we see that there is a history of this. And when we see this now, like with television and I wouldn't say radio anymore, there isn't that much radio. People are competing for ratings. Oh yeah, there's a big headline saying CBS News lost all of half of its ratings last month. Fox News is ahead. This and that. They're not talking about quality. They're talking about ratings. Why are they talking about ratings? Because ratings bring advertisers. So advertisers bring money. So you say, well, thank God we have independent media. And those are social media people. And the internet has allowed people to go out there and spout unfounded opinions all the time and get massive following. Massive. So has it made it better? Well, in a way, if you want to say something, you go on there and you create a YouTube channel, but try to get somebody to watch it. You have to do something to get people to watch. Now, some things you're saying, oh, how to repair your toilet, and people are definitely going to tune into that. But if you're going to be making political commentary or social commentary, you better say something sensational enough for somebody to want to click on you, because there's 10 other bazookas lined up who are also talking at the same time. And, I'll tell you, as much as I do love independent media, I also can't stand it either, because I find it too sensationalist, too much about opinion, and too much about ego. And what do I mean by that? Well, of course, you can get monetized on YouTube. I'm not monetized on YouTube, by the way. So I really don't make any money off doing this stuff. And then some are sponsored, people that I used to like, I see now they have to stop in order to do an ad for whoever their sponsor is. And I'm thinking, what do these genes have to do with the state of the world, or whatever it is? So, I understand why some of them are doing it. Maybe they need the income. Thank God I make a living doing something else. So I don't have to pander to what you like. And I don't have to pander to anybody at all. I don't like the fact that I don't have more viewers, but it's not going to take food out of my mouth. But some people have really set themselves up as these little mini businesses, and they will go on and support me on Patreon and support me on Substack and support me on here and support me on there, and yes, after a while I begin to wonder, why are you doing this? Is this because you want to be important? And some of them so dramatize what they have gone through, standing up to the administration. And ooh, if somebody from the other side mentions them, you're going to hear about it, because that's the way they're selling themselves now. And so is it any wonder that we have a lot of noise coming at us and not that much legitimate information? Plus, as we've seen for a long time, a lot of anchors on the news are not even journalists. They are talking heads. They read scripts. They have, what are things in their ears telling them what to say, and it's a living. They're making a living, but they may not even have. Some do, but they may not even have investigative journalist background for them to even start to look at how true it is or how untrue it is. And they have to please their station. The news stations are very polarized also. So, you're not going to find too many Democratic socialists on Fox News or vice versa. You're not going to see too many really conservative people on the more liberal news programs. And I watch these conversations, these panels, and the people say the same thing over and over and try to make it look like they're saying something new, but it's the same thing you just heard half an hour ago, 2 hours ago, last night. And the result of this, all of this pandering and trying to get attention, I need attention, either for my ratings, for my income, or just for my ego, it leads to a lot of nonsense and silliness. And I'm going to give you an example of that. Francesca Hong, who ran for the Democratic spot as governor of Wisconsin, she said that we should abolish or cancel Thanksgiving. And all you heard every time you looked at an article about hers, she wanted to cancel Thanksgiving. Amy says, what about public radio TV as at least somewhat unbiased? I'm going to get to what we can do about it and where we should go, Amy. So you're a little ahead of me. I'm talking about the general state right now. So here's a perfect example. Francesca Hung said we should abolish Thanksgiving, cancel it. Well, you know why? Because Thanksgiving is a symbol of the European colonialists coming over to the US, what was not with the New World at that time, it wasn't new to the native people, and killing the people, displacing the people, oppressing the people. It's a symbol.
Taking their lands.
Taking their lands. It's a symbol to some people of colonialism. Whoopie-doo. I mean, it would be like going to India and they're celebrating a day when they were first taken over by the British Empire.
Right.
Right? It's like, oh, whoopee, whoopee. And the same thing is true of Columbus Day. So, I totally understand why she wanted to cancel Thanksgiving. Now, it wasn't politically astute to say it, but I understand it. See, but we have to distort things that people say in order to do the gotcha, which is an important part of a polarized society. And you have to prove your fealty to the party line, whatever that party is. So, what do you do if you want information? So, Amy has just brought up public radio and TV is much better. You go to see Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman will try to give you some information, or other people who you find on public radio and public television. So, mostly public television. I don't listen to the radio anymore. So you're going to get a less biased, more information from these people, which is why the government is always trying to shut them down. Or you can pick some people that you know and trust. For example, and one of our viewers turned me on to Heather Cox Richardson. She is a historian, and she's on YouTube and a lot of other places all the time, giving her commentary as a historian. She knows the past. She'll talk about it, or she doesn't put out sensationalized information. For instance, some people are saying the US has invaded Greenland. The US has invaded Greenland. The US has not invaded Greenland yet. It's doing some shenanigans, there's no question about that. So I tend to trust her. And there are people that you've listened to and you tend to trust. But see, she's not looking for her ego. She's not trying to look important. Not that I can pick up. She's just trying to tell us what's going on and keep us informed. And she doesn't sensationalize. And I like Rachel Maddow, although she has a clear bias, which I tend to agree with. But a lot of times she will give informative commentary. So you may like entirely other people. You may be on a different part of the political spectrum. But I am so tired of hearing about the demise of the right, the demise of the left, the demise of Trump, the demise. So, what do you think about what I'm saying? How do you feel? Because I can tell you why I think this is damaging. This is damaging because people don't get very much objective information. It's all slanted in some direction. And so it's hard for people to know what is truly going on. And people who are already biased are going to look for the people who agree with them. So they have to find either social media or legacy media. I mean, the legacy media is getting pretty pathetic also. That's going to feed their bias. Wonderful. Yes.
I was very struck by that phrase that you shared earlier about having inputs like this invade our inner space.
Yes.
I've noticed over the years, if I watch too much news or read about too much news, it becomes part of my inner space and I get down, I feel down. Or I get polarized, I get all riled up. You talked about sensationalism. There's a saying in newsrooms, if it bleeds, it leads. So you're going to hear about the murders and the crimes and the really bad shenanigans before you get the other kind of news. So it's very depressing. So it's very good that you're talking about looking to places you can trust, broadcasters that you can trust, because as for the rest of it, it's up for grabs. You know, I'll never forget a comedy show talking about Fox News. And Fox News was putting on a totally created lie propaganda about something that had happened that day. And to prove what they were talking about, they showed a video of a rally that had happened months ago, months prior. And they tried to lead you to believe that this was what was going on that day.
Yeah. And I haven't even talked about how the government is trying to take over the media.
Oh, yeah. They've already taken over CBS. They've taken over Washington Post. Billionaires.
Billionaires are taking over the media. And so, how much unbiased information are we going to get? I do want to first reinforce what you said because it's making me sick. I want to keep abreast of what's happening because you can glean information, and I like to know what's happening, especially because I do this program. So I watch more than I normally would, or I used to. I used to not watch that much, but I feel that hysteria takes me over, as you're talking about, and that's important, James. I was going to make another point, but where did it go? Oh yeah, how the government is taking over. This is becoming like a very dictatorial government. And they're already feeding us so much disinformation and misinformation. As we know, the Department of Injustice is constantly attacking people, accusing people, prosecuting people for speaking out. I feel that we should also say that there are a lot of people out there who have the courage to get the stories that the government doesn't want us to hear. People who go into hotspots, countries where there is violence, and try to find out what's going on. People who speak up and are not letting the government intimidate them, even though the government is saying that anybody who espouses these kind of views is connected to Antifa and should be prosecuted. And we've seen incredible jail time for people who have who have protested, people who have exposed ICE. So I want to give praise and acknowledgement. And sometimes it's the same people that I'm angry at because they're still sensationalizing things or trying to get you to click or pulling on you emotionally. But we do need people who have the courage to stand up and find out what is happening. And I appreciate that, and I want to honor that so that you're not left with the feeling that I only hate the media, because I don't. Without it, I wouldn't know anything about what's going on. So, but we have to watch it. We have to be careful, as Amy says, look for sources that are unbiased, or at least somewhat unbiased, or look at people with different biases and hear what they have to say. You know, there are so many people that I just can't listen to them because it's lie after lie after lie, absolute blatant lies and corruption. I don't want this to infiltrate our souls. I want us to see if we can't have some standards, recognize we're being manipulated for other purposes, and try to listen to things or do things, take a walk at the beach or in the forest that restore us to sanity. So that's all I have today. Thank you for your comment, James, and your comment, Amy. We broadcast every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and I try to tell the truth to the best of my ability, what I understand. And that's my commitment. And I appreciate your support. And I'm willing to not have 1 million followers in order to keep my integrity. I probably wouldn't succeed anyway. So why should I bastardize myself when I wouldn't become successful? So there it is. And Thursday night, which happens to be tomorrow, also on YouTube and Facebook, James and I are going to be doing our music program, Healing Music for Our Times, where I play the piano and he sings. And we try to lift the spirit, express our pain, and support the good fight. So until then, I guess I'll call
Bye-bye
it
for
a night.
now.
Bye-bye.